Picture this. It is late on a Thursday afternoon. You are staring down a massive, convoluted spreadsheet or maybe a dense 50-page quarterly report.
Oh yeah, we have all definitely been there.
Right. And you need to summarize it before a meeting that starts in exactly 10 minutes. So you do what basically everyone does now. You copy the whole thing, you paste it into your favorite AI tool in another browser tab, and you ask it to pull out the key points.
And boom, done in 3 seconds.
Exactly. You look like a genius. You just saved an hour of painful formatting, and you head into your meeting completely relaxed. But, I mean, in that tiny 3-second window, did you ever stop and wonder where exactly that data just went?
Yeah, who is actually tracking it?
Right, and if that was confidential company information you just pasted into a public prompt, well, who just lost control of it?
It is a scenario playing out millions of times a day across almost every industry on the planet. And it perfectly illustrates the central illusion of the modern workplace. We had this overwhelming feeling that we are entirely in control of these tools. We type a command and the machine obeys. But the reality of what is happening under the hood is far more complicated and honestly a lot more fragile.
Which is exactly why we are diving into this topic today. We are exploring a massive, eye-opening look at the modern enterprise. Specifically, we're looking at a 2026 report from the GRC Pros blog titled The AI Assurance Gap.
It is a really crucial piece of research.
It really is. Our mission today is to uncover this hidden chasm between a company's perceived control over artificial intelligence and the actual mathematical reality of what these systems are doing behind the scenes. We're going to figure out what happens when the technology sitting on your laptop completely outpaces the safety guardrails your company's trying to build.
It is a fascinating and frankly sobering reality check. Because when you look at the raw data, AI is evolving at a velocity that is fundamentally breaking traditional human-driven compliance systems.
It is just moving too fast.
Exactly. The tools are scaling exponentially, but the governance, the people and policies supposed to keep everything safe is moving at a linear bureaucratic pace.
Okay, let's unpack this. To really grasp why companies are losing their grip, we first have to look at the sheer unprecedented scale of this boom. The adoption numbers we're looking at are wild.
They really are staggering.
Generative AI hit a 53% global population adoption rate in just 3 years. That means 1 in 6 people on the planet is actively using it. I mean, for context, it took the internet a decade to reach that kind of saturation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of population-level diffusion is historically completely anomalous. And we need to understand why it's happening so fast.
So what's driving it?
It being driven by a massive structural collapse in the cost of computing. Over an 18-month period between late 2022 and 2024, the cost of running inference dropped 280-fold.
Wow.
Yeah. Inference is the actual computational cost of you asking an AI a question and it generating an answer.
Yeah.
It essentially became almost free to operate at the individual level.
That is like the price of a gallon of gas going from $5 to 2 cents in a year and a half. Of course, everyone is going to start driving.
Right, exactly.
But there is a massive energy paradox here, isn't there? Because the chips are getting wildly more efficient, but we are using them so relentlessly that aggregate global data center energy is forecasted to hit 4% of the world's total energy supply by 2030.
Yes, and the computing isn't just staying in those massive centralized cloud data centers anymore. This is a crucial shift. By 2025, half of all personal computers shipped with local neural processing units, or NPUs.
Okay, so what does that actually mean for the average person?
Well, this is what the industry calls edge AI. Instead of your prompt traveling over the internet to a server farm in the desert somewhere, the heavy processing power is pushed directly onto your local device. It is sitting right there on your desk, outside of the heavily monitored corporate cloud.
Oh, wow. And the demographics of who is using this are shifting incredibly fast, too. Like, the gender adoption gap is rapidly closing. The data shows women's adoption of these tools grew 3 times over compared to men's at 2.2 times.
So literally everyone is getting on board.
Right. So we have explosive growth, computing costs have plummeted, and the AI is literally embedded in the hardware we buy. 88% of organizations report using AI regularly.
But here is the massive twist that really stops you in your tracks.
Hit me.
95% of enterprise generative AI pilots show absolutely zero measurable impact on corporate profit and loss statements.
Wait, 0?
Zero. They are entirely stuck in what the tech world is calling pilot purgatory.
It sounds like every company on Earth just bought a Formula One race car, but they
Mhm.
are only driving it back and forth in their driveway because they literally don't know how to merge onto the highway.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize the problem. The execution failure across the corporate world is profound right now.
But some companies are figuring it out, right?
Oh, sure. There is an elite cohort, about 15% of companies classified as AI leaders, who are seeing massive revenue boosts.
Hmm.
But they're using strict, multi-year proprietary roadmaps. The vast majority of companies are just failing to launch.
And why is that? Why are they stuck in the driveway?
It mostly comes down to data integration. Industry leaders estimate that only 1% of enterprise data has actually been integrated into any form of AI model,
Only 1%. Why is that so low?
because corporate data is a massive mess. It is siloed in legacy databases, it's scattered across different departments, and buried in unstructured formats.
I mean, I have seen my company's shared drive, so I believe it.
Right. To make an AI actually useful for a business, you have to feed it the company's proprietary data.
Hmm.
But the second you try to do that, you run headfirst into a brick wall of risk.
Which explains why they are stuck. The second they try to put these models into the real world, like live production, their traditional safety and governance frameworks completely collapse. The statistic that absolutely blew my mind is that 72% of enterprises have AI running live in production right now, but only 9% describe their internal governance as mature.
And this raises an important question. Why is traditional corporate governance failing so spectacularly here? Why can't the old rules apply to the new tech?
Yeah, why can't they?
It comes down to a fundamental mismatch in software architecture. Traditional governance, risk, and compliance, which we call GRC, is built for deterministic software.
Meaning what exactly? Like a calculator.
Exactly like a calculator. Deterministic means static and entirely predictable. If you put in input A, you will always get output B. 2 plus 2 is always 4.
Right.
The code does not change until a human software engineer manually writes an update and pushes a new version. Because it's static, an auditor can come in, test the code on a Tuesday, give it a passing grade, sign a document, and walk away knowing that software will behave the exact same way on Friday.
But AI isn't a calculator. It is more like a chef making a new recipe every time.
Yes, AI is probabilistic and dynamic. It learns. It mutates daily based on the new data it ingests. It isn't following hard-coded rules.
It's just guessing, basically.
Well, it is looking for statistical patterns across billions of parameters, making sub-second decisions based on shifting probabilities.
Hmm.
You simply cannot govern a dynamic, continuously learning neural network with a static point-in-time audit.
But companies are trying to.
They absolutely are. They're relying on static PDF documents, subjective risk scoring by managers, and annual manual audits to govern systems that are changing every single millisecond.
Okay, let me push back on this a bit. Wait, if I'm a CEO and I have a signed 50-page safety policy from my IT director stating that our AI vendor has been vetted and audited, why isn't that enough? I mean, isn't a rule a rule? If the AI violates the policy, we just turn it off.
It really comes down to the critical difference between administrative intent and technical enforcement. To stick with your car analogy, a PDF policy is like putting a speed limit sign on the side of the highway. It clearly declares your intent as a company, but it doesn't physically stop the car from going 100 miles an hour if the driver decides to press the gas.
Gotcha.
A technical control, on the other hand, is a speed governor physically installed inside the engine itself. It makes going over the limit mathematically impossible.
So the C-suite is looking at the speed limit sign and assuming the car is perfectly safe.
Precisely. Only 10% of global corporate boards are actually considered AI ready right now. And that is because these incredibly complex technical risks aren't being translated into financial risks that they can understand.
Like what kind of risks?
Take something like algorithmic drift. This is when a model slowly changes its behavior over time, because the real-world data it's seeing now is different from the data it was trained on. A static PDF audit cannot catch algorithmic drift.
And the real-world consequences of assuming a PDF keeps you safe are genuinely terrifying. Look at the Epic sepsis model. This was a vital healthcare algorithm deployed in hospitals to predict sepsis in patients.
Right.
It went through all the traditional administrative governance committees. It got the PDF stamps of approval. But once it was deployed in the real world, it actively missed roughly 66.6% of actual patient sepsis cases.
What is fascinating here is how that failure actually happened. The model had been trained on administrative medical billing codes, not on real-time physiological patient symptoms.
Just because billing codes are easy to track on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. The administrative audit verified that a safety policy existed and that the data was flowing, but it completely lacked the continuous technical validation required to recognize that the model's underlying logic was fundamentally misaligned with clinical reality.
Because a billing code is after the fact.
Right. A billing code tells you a patient was treated for something days ago. It doesn't tell a doctor that a patient's temperature is spiking right this second. The governance failed because it wasn't measuring the machine. It was just measuring the paperwork.
So if you are listening to this at work right now, there's a very good chance your company's official sanctioned AI initiatives are locked down. They are paralyzed by this broken compliance structure.
Yeah, they are stuck in purgatory.
But the work still needs to get done. Your boss still expects that report summarized in 10 minutes. So what do? You go rogue. And this is creating a massive security nightmare that we call the shadow AI epidemic.
And the numbers we're seeing on this are honestly kind of scary. 96% of enterprise employees use generative AI apps.
That's almost everyone.
Yeah, and that usage drove an 890% surge in generative AI network traffic over a single year. And they're not just asking these tools to write polite emails or suggest lunch spots.
No. 43% of employees openly admit to feeding sensitive, confidential work data into unsanctioned AI tools. They are logging into their personal private accounts, completely bypassing the corporate firewalls, and just uploading company secrets.
It is wild. And the financial fallout of that is brutal. When an organization suffers a data breach associated with AI, it is costing them over $650,000 on average.
Ouch.
And for companies that have high levels of this hidden shadow AI usage, it adds a massive cost premium to any data breach, an extra $670,000, because security teams have absolutely no idea where the data went or who has it.
And how are employers reacting to this total loss of control with a massive, toxic surge in surveillance? Because management can't track the AI, they are tracking the human.
Which never goes well.
Never. 74% of U.S. employers are now using online tracking tools to monitor screen activity. 61% are using AI-powered analytics to measure employee productivity, literally tracking keystrokes and idle time. And 67% are collecting biometric data.
It is a complete overreaction.
It is completely dystopian. And the result is exactly what you would expect. A massive collapse in organizational trust. 59% of employees are reporting high stress or clinical anxiety directly tied to knowing their boss is digitally watching their every move.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Are the employees doing this maliciously? It feels like banning calculators during a math test while everyone has a smartphone in their pocket. People just want to get the job done faster, right?
That is exactly the psychological dynamic driving this. This isn't corporate espionage. It is entirely rational behavior in the face of operational friction.
Yeah.
Half of administrative workers in highly regulated fields, like healthcare and finance, openly state they use unsanctioned AI strictly because they need faster workflows.
It is just human nature.
Absolutely. When compliance is clunky, when the approved corporate tools are walled off and inferior to the free tool you can get on your phone, employees will naturally migrate to the path of least resistance.
Which creates a total mess.
It creates this incredibly dangerous game of cat and mouse. Management installs screen monitors, employees find ways to bypass them to get their work done, creating an endless cycle of distrust.
Having employees secretly paste data into chatbots is bad enough. But the technology itself is evolving while this is happening, and the stakes are escalating rapidly. We are moving away from simple chatbots and into the era of autonomous agents, right as global lawmakers are stepping in with massive financial penalties. The pressure cooker is about to burst.
This is a critical pivot point in understanding where we are heading. We are transitioning from passive generative AI, where you prompt it, and it gives you text, to agentic AI.
Agentic AI, so agents.
Right. These are systems designed to initiate actions, execute multi-step workflows, and interface with external systems with minimal human intervention. 62% of surveyed companies are already experimenting with AI agents, and half of them expect to have them running autonomously in production environments by 2027.
So we are moving from a smart encyclopedia to an autonomous worker. That is like giving an intern a corporate credit card, the keys to the database, and then leaving the building for 6 months.
It fundamentally breaks existing security paradigms. You are seeing a 60% expansion of the enterprise cyber attack surface because of this.
Just because of the agents.
Yes. And the nature of the attacks is shifting heavily toward identity-driven threats. Cybercriminals are using AI to generate flawless deepfake voice and video for social engineering. But even more quietly, they are abusing machine-to-machine identities.
How does that actually work?
Think about API tokens. If an AI agent needs to autonomously pull data from your company's CRM to build a report, it uses a digital key called an API token to prove it has permission.
Okay, makes sense.
Hackers are figuring out how to steal or hijack those machine tokens. Because it's an automated machine talking to another automated machine, it completely bypasses traditional multi-factor authentication. There is no human to click approve on a smartphone. The database just hands over the data.
Wow. And as these tools get more powerful and autonomous, they are actually getting harder for us to understand. We are flying blind. We looked at the Stanford 2026 AI Index, which outlines this terrifying paradox of transparency.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
It really is. The most capable frontier models, like the smartest AI out there, are actually getting less transparent. Over a single year, the average transparency score across the global AI sector dropped from 58 to 40 on a 100-point scale. Out of 95 major AI models released globally in 2025, an astonishing 80 of them completely hid their training code from the public.
Now, from a commercial standpoint, they're protecting proprietary secrets.
Yeah.
But from a governance standpoint, organizations are attempting to build rigorous safety protocols on top of a technological substrate that is intentionally obscured by its creator.
You literally cannot see inside it.
You are trying to govern a black box. This is why security experts are now heavily advocating for zero-trust AI.
Zero trust meaning what? Trust nothing.
Exactly. Because these models are opaque, and agents can act autonomously, security teams must operate under the assumption that every single interaction, every prompt, and every output could be malicious. You have to assume the breach has already happened. It requires continuous, sub-second monitoring of all AI telemetry.
And companies have to figure this out fast because the regulators are not waiting around for them to catch up. The legal landscape is turning into an absolute avalanche.
It is getting incredibly strict.
The European Union's AI Act has entered its enforcement phase. We are talking about fines of up to 35 million euros, or 7% of an organization's total global revenue.
Massive fines.
And in the U.S., it is incredibly fragmented. You have California's SB 53, different laws in Texas, massive industry-specific insurance regulations. The projections show this fractured legal landscape will push total corporate compliance spending to a staggering $1 billion by the year 2030.
The financial liability of relying on manual, human-driven governance to manage autonomous, probabilistic systems is simply unsustainable. You cannot hire enough humans to read enough PDFs to keep up.
No way.
Which leads us to the ultimate solution, and what those rare 9% of organizations with mature governance are actually doing right.
Right. We've established that humans using manual spreadsheets cannot possibly govern autonomous black box AI at scale. So how do you fix it? The solution is a massive pivot toward an AI-native compliance posture.
Essentially, the compliance professionals are actively evaluating AI to automate their own workflows. Over 43% of GRC professionals are already doing this.
They are governing the machine with the machine. And the technical foundation for this is something called MLOps, or machine learning operations.
Right.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does MLOps actually look like in practice?
It involves weaving governance requirements directly into the neural fabric of the code itself. It brings the rigorous disciplines of software engineering directly into the AI lifecycle.
Meaning what, exactly?
It means a model is subjected to rigorous, automated mathematical testing before it is ever allowed to touch real production data. It is continuously validated.
And to replace those useless PDF policies, they are using something called the CTRS framework, the Control Tower Reasoning System. This replaces written rules with dynamic, machine-executed controls. We are talking about API gateways, token limiters, and real-time prompt filters.
Think of a prompt filter, like a microscopic bouncer standing at the door of your AI. Before your prompt even reaches the model, this bouncer scans it for confidential data or malicious intent at the speed of light.
Well, that's brilliant.
If it sees a social security number, it physically blocks the transmission. It mathematically constrains the AI's behavior at runtime, and the data shows it works.
It actually works.
Yeah. Organizations that score high on AI maturity indexes have a 57% trust rate among their business units compared to the companies spying on their employees. Plus, implementing these AI-native controls is projected to decrease regulatory compliance costs by 20% over the next few years.
So what does this all mean? If we are using AI, like these prompt filters and automated monitors to monitor the risks of our AI, aren't we just letting the machines grade their own homework?
This raises an important question about how we architecture trust. It comes down to a critical concept, which is the separation of duties.
Okay.
While developers use MLOs to build safe models, which is considered the line 1 defense true, defensible governance requires an independent line 2 defense.
A completely separate system.
Precisely. Organizations must deploy independent, automated validation platforms that passively ingest the data from the AI.
Ah, I see.
These watcher systems run objective fairness tests and verify outcomes entirely independently of the original developer's code. You separate the builder from the auditor, even when both the builder and the auditor are algorithms.
It is a profound shift in how we think about work. To summarize the journey we've taken today, you are sitting in the middle of a historic technological shift. Whether you are prepping for a board meeting, trying to catch up on the latest industry trends, or you are that person we talked about at the very beginning.
Right? Quietly pasting a spreadsheet into an unsanctioned AI tool to save an hour of your Thursday.
Exactly. You are part of this ecosystem. Understanding this assurance gap explains exactly why the modern workplace might feel incredibly futuristic, yet highly fragile and stressful at the exact same time. The rules of physics for software are being rewritten in real time.
The gap between the illusion of administrative control and the mathematical reality of technical assurance is the defining enterprise vulnerability of this decade. Organizations have to bridge that gap with technical controls because the data clearly indicates that human effort alone is no longer physically capable of keeping up.
Which leaves us with a provocative final thought to chew on. We are rapidly approaching a world where the absolute only way to mathematically govern an artificial intelligence is to build an even more powerful artificial intelligence to watch it. But as those watcher models become increasingly complex, probabilistic, and utterly opaque themselves, well, who audits the auditor? When human comprehension is entirely removed from the compliance loop and it's just machines monitoring machines at the speed of light, what does the word trust actually mean anymore? Next time you hit paste on that data and watch the summary generate in 3 seconds, ask yourself, who is really in control?